Don't stretch if you haven't tried this. On the foot that actually squats that rib cage, and so open up this. And if you're selecting the right exercises in your program that use load to pull you into a certain position and strengthen areas that again pull you into a certain position, you probably don't need a lot of stretching if you don't have specific flexibility goals that require additional stretching. Okay, enough of this clickbait, but the truth is many guys out there stretch way too much and way too early because there is such a better way on getting rid of all of your tightnesses. And what that is, you will learn in this video. Let's take a look at what we actually want to achieve when we stretch. So we usually start stretching if we feel a tightness in a certain area of our body. So we're providing length to that muscle by stretching it to get a bit of relief of the tightness. But there is a better way of getting rid of the tightness and at the same way kind of avoiding that the tightness comes repetitively over and over and over. And that is training especially these areas and the muscles that are in this area over full range of motion. Because if you actually train those muscles, you will not only get more flexible in that area, but also you will gain more active range. So where is the difference? The one motion is that you need an external force to get you in that position, and the other one is that you actually have this range of motion actively here. You can pull yourself in that position and you can exert force in that position. And if this position is trained, it's of course more sustainable than if you just stretch for it. So in this video, I want to provide you with exercises for the most common tightnesses and how you can implement them in your program to finally get rid of the most common tightnesses. The first common area of tightness are our hip flexors, and I want to give you a very nice combination of two exercises that will help you to get rid of this tightness on the long run. And for that combination, we're going to use a Bulgarian split squat or a front foot elevated lunge. So an exercise where we push one hip into extension and the other leg is doing the squat. And if we push that hip in extension with a split squat or a front foot elevated lunge, we're getting a good length here in that tight area. But that is kind of the same way as stretching it. There is one upside to it because we don't need an extra stretch as we're integrating that exercise into a workout. So the stretch is already done. But the second part we need to take care of is not only stretching this side, but also strengthening the back side. So we want to combine the hip flexor stretching exercise with a hamstring strengthening exercise that could be a hip hinge or a leg curl variation. But let's start with the exercise, and that is the Bulgarian split squat. So when you're doing the Bulgarian split squat, I want you to think of pushing this knee far over the toes and having most of the load on this foot. And when you're going down, you don't want to sit back, because if you sit back, there will be no stretch on this side. So you stay upright and then you go down with the load on the foot that actually squats. And you push this leg back, and then I can now really feel a stretch on this side, and I can feel my quads and the glutes working on the other side. The combination exercise I want to show you is a seated leg curl. Why a seated leg curl? Because that seated position puts our hip already in a flexion position. That means if we are working on the hamstring in that position, we're providing a lot of length to that muscle, and we're giving it a very, very good stretch so we can work it in that very, very valuable lengthened position. So what we're doing is we're not only just strengthening the hamstrings, but we're also training it at a very, very long length. And so again, kind of doing the same as we would if we're stretching it. So we're not only getting rid of the tightness in our hip flexors by doing the Bulgarian split squats or the front foot elevated lunge, but we're also now training our hamstrings to preventing the hip flexors from getting tight, and at the same time, while exercising them, also stretching the hamstrings to avoid tightness in the hamstrings. So when you build up the setup, I want you to take care of the following things. Lower back, stay straight. And if you want to increase the stretch, you can lean forward even more with a straight lower back, and you can pull your toes towards your knees, and you will feel a very, very nasty stretch on that one. And then you just pull, and then stretch position, pull, stretch position, pull, stretch position. And now with a combination of just 2 exercises, we already took care of hamstring tightness and hip flexor tightness without any stretching in our program. Another common area of tightness are your glutes. And especially if you work like me on the desk most of the day, the glutes are not very active and they're getting very tight. And that can be a problem if you are a competitive street lifter like I am, or a power lifter who needs to squat. Because what happens when your glutes are getting very, very tight is that your hip internal rotation gets very, very limited, because the glute pulls your hip into that external rotation bias. And a great exercise that you can do to open up the back of your hip capsule and stretching out those glutes is a staggered stance RDL, and we're gonna drive even more internal rotation in our hip by loading it contralaterally. That means if I now want to stretch my right glute and my right hip capsule to gain more hip internal rotation, I put the right leg in the front and load the left hand. And then I push that hip back and load the front inside of my foot while going down. And that weight drives even more hip internal rotation. Now I can feel that big stretch in my glute, in the backside of my hip. What also would work here in that case is a regular RDL, where you put a foam roller like that between your legs to drive a bit more internal rotation, engaging the adductors and taking the glutes a bit out of that external rotation bias. And then you can of course also do it with a barbell. Get that RDL in. And that will help you to then gain more internal rotation range and to perform better at deep squats. The next exercise on our list will help you to get rid of the tightness in your chest and in your anterior chest wall. If you are tight here on the front side, because again, you're sitting on the desk a lot and maybe you're also dipping a lot and you have a lot of exercises with that internal rotation in front of your body like dips, then it is very, very common to feel tightness here. You might even have problems with breathing in very, very deeply because this area is so tight and compressed. And again, instead of laying on the floor and stretching it, provide active range with exercises like the chest fly. And this will also be a very, very nice exercise to help you with getting that rib cage open for bench presses. So this can be an exercise that you can implement in your warm-up before dips or before bench presses to open up the rib cage and to get rid of the tightness in your pecs. That will help you to create more internal rotation in the shoulder and to create more distance while benching and dipping between your chest wall and your arm, which will get your chest into a much more powerful eccentrical bias position. So I like to have a setup on the cables. It also works with dumbbells. And what we want to take care of is that we are pressing our neck into the bench because that will lift off our chest. And then we're breathing in while going into the stretch. And we're enjoying the stretch here. We're breathing out while contracting. You will see how a sternum lifts up and how my whole rib cage can expand. The next exercise on the list to open up our chest wall to gain overhead mobility, so to also open up our lats as well as the pecs and the chest, are pullovers. And for that you can use a dumbbell, but also a weight plate, as long as it's a load that you can control pretty good. For me, this is now 16 kg kettlebell in that case. Setup wise, you want to put your upper back on the bench like this, and then while going down, you breathe in, and while going up, you breathe out. And instead of just going back like this, I want you to reach up while going back. So you don't retract your shoulders, you actively reach into the ceiling. So I'm gonna grab this kettlebell, and now I breathe in and reach. And then I go into that stretch position. Okay, misbreathed. Again, breathing in. And breathing out. And what I want you to take care of is that you are not just using your spine and you don't just arch like that. So you keep your spine stable, you keep it rigid, and you really want to work from the rib cage when you're going overhead, and you want to let this area expand here. And if you incorporate a bit of those reaches, that will even help you to get rid of some upper back tightness, which we will cover now. The last area of tightness we're going to cover today is your upper back. A lot of athletes that we are working with, they present with a very, very flat and compressed upper back. Because again, it's most likely due to their static working environment where you are sitting like that most of the time, slightly shrugged position. You don't have those big inhales and exhales, so the rib cage is not moving, and you are just likely to compress your upper back the whole day. That results in some tightness in that area. And to get rid of that tightness, we need to expand this area by reaching forward. Because if you lose the ability to reach and to create space between your shoulder blades, you can test that. If you have a super, super tight upper back, very, very likely your shoulder external rotation will be highly limited. Vice versa, if that chest wall here is tight and the front side is tight, if you don't do exercises like we discussed earlier, bench presses, chest flies, and pullovers, then your internal rotation will most likely be limited. So the shoulder internal rotation. So the last group of exercises we will take a look at are exercises that will help you to get better in reaching. And with reaching, I really mean to protract the shoulder blades and at the same time push your ribs back in space like that. So we don't want to just crunch our spine in and round forward. And which exercise you can use for that, I will show you now. First exercise that I want to show you to provide you with a very, very nice reaching forward motion are chest supported rows. As I, in my gym, don't have a nice chest supported rowing machine, I build up my own, so I just use this incline bench and then I put it on the highest position, and instead of having my chest supported, I then need to support my head. And then I want to keep my sternum upright and let the weight move my shoulder blades into a protraction. At the same time, I breathe in through my nose and think of pressing my ribs back like that. And then I breathe out while contracting. Looks like that. I promise you it will give you a super, super nice stretch in your upper back. And again, the best thing is you are then providing work in that position. You really have a lot of load pulling you into that position. And this reaching pattern, of course, also works with any kind of rowing movements. So you can also use a cable row, single arm cable rows, dumbbell rows. The only thing you need to keep in mind is that we don't want to move the spine, but the rib cage and the shoulder blades. So as long as you keep your spine in a neutral position and you let the shoulder blades move around the rib cage and you breathe correctly, then this rowing exercise will give you nice range in your upper back, and you will get rid of tightness in your neck, tightness in your upper back, and you will gain external rotation in your shoulder. So the last exercise that I want to show you to provide you with a nice reach and a nice stretch in your upper back are preacher curls. And preacher curls are super nice because if you're doing chin-ups and you're having struggle with keeping that shoulder in external rotation, then the preacher curl is even better for you. Because what it does is, let me take the left side here, it puts your arm in external rotated position. So we're not internally rotated, we're externally rotated. If I now keep my sternum upright and do a preacher curl, and when I go down, breathe in, and when I curl, I breathe out. My biceps will help me to pull my shoulder blade forward, and I can retract that rib cage and so open up the space between my shoulder blades. And at the same time, I can do something good for my shoulder external rotation. So a very, very valuable exercise when it comes to mobility, as well as, of course, it's very, very nice for biceps gains. I hope that with this video I could open your eyes a bit and gave you a new insight on how you could use exercise selection and programming to get rid of your mobility issues and also your flexibility issues, because there's so much more out there than passive stretching. And if you're selecting the right exercises in your program that use load to pull you into a certain position and strengthen areas that again pull you into a certain position, you probably don't need a lot of stretching if you don't have specific flexibility goals that require additional stretching. So summing that up, using the right exercise selection can help you to stay mobile, stay healthy. It can help you with your rehab process by providing you ranges that are missing for you. So if you are interested in learning more about this type of programming, you can use my new program. It's called Professional Street Lifting, and it is designed in that fashion. It incorporates exercise to tackle the common areas of tightnesses for street lifters, to give them range of motion in the common areas they need range of motion to perform dips, squats, muscle ups, pull-ups, to have really a pain-free body that can move good into positions and even have those positions being stable, which you can't get with stretching, but you can get that if you really train those ranges. And if you are a personal trainer and you really want to learn this concept and implement it for your clients, then make sure to check our new mentoring page, as we're now offering one-on-one mentorings to elevate your business to the next stage. The concept of the mentoring is not to provide you with more and more and more marketing tools to get more and more and more clients. It's about providing a better service for your clients, providing a better solution for your clients so you can extend the booking durations, You can charge more because you're solving the problems better, and then creating a really sustainable base of long-term clients to have a more stable business and just to become a better problem solver for your clients.